In November 2011, Latoya Ammons moved into a small rental house in Gary, Indiana, with her 3 children and her mother, Rosa Campbell. They had been struggling financially and hoped that this new home would bring them some stability. At first glance, the house appeared unremarkable, a modest, single-story home with beige walls and a creaky wooden porch. The family was grateful for a fresh start, but they had no idea that they had just stepped into what would become their worst nightmare. The eerie events began subtly, unusual noises in the middle of the night, whispering voices coming from empty rooms, and the sensation of being watched. Rosa dismissed these as normal house-settling sounds, but Latoya felt something sinister lurking. As winter set in, an inexplicable swarm of black flies infested the house. They clustered around the porch and windows, despite the freezing temperatures outside. No matter how many times they were exterminated, they kept coming back. "That's not normal," Rosa murmured, her Catholic faith whispering warnings of an unholy presence. A deep sense of dread settled over the household. At night, loud footsteps echoed from the basement. When Rosa would go to check, she found nothing but the chilling air of the dark, empty space. One evening, Rosa saw a dark shadow move across the living room. Her heart pounded as she reached for the light switch, but when she turned it on, nothing was there. Then, things escalated. Latoya woke up one night to find her 12-year-old daughter levitating above her bed, eyes wide open but unseeing. The girl was completely unresponsive. The moment Latoya screamed, her daughter crashed onto the bed and woke up crying, unable to recall what had happened. Fear gripped the family. They sought the help of local pastors, but even after intense prayers, the disturbances continued. The children's behavior started to change. Latoya's son, who had been a quiet, gentle child, began to grow violent. He spoke in deep, guttural voices that were not his own. "They are watching me," he would whisper, his eyes unfocused. His younger brother would often be found talking to an unseen figure in the corner of the room. "Who are you speaking to?" Latoya asked. "The tall man with red eyes," he responded casually. Terror filled Latoya's veins. She knew something evil had taken hold of her children. One night, Rosa was in the living room when the temperature suddenly dropped. She turned to see a dark figure standing near the basement door. Its shape was human, but its eyes were hollow and bleeding. The moment she gasped, it vanished into thin air. The next morning, Latoya and Rosa found their 3 children covered in scratches and bruises. They had no memory of how they got them. Desperate, they sought help from the church. A local priest, Father Michael Maginot, agreed to visit the home. Father Maginot conducted a thorough investigation. As he sprinkled holy water, the children screamed in agony, their bodies convulsing unnaturally. One of them even threw up black liquid. "This house is possessed," the priest declared. "I need permission from the diocese to perform an exorcism." Meanwhile, the family could no longer stay in the house. They took refuge in a nearby shelter, but the presence followed them. Even outside of the house, they experienced nightmares, unexplained bruises, and sudden violent outbursts. Father Maginot was granted permission to perform an exorcism on Latoya. The ritual was conducted in the church, with Latin prayers echoing through the walls. During the ceremony, Latoya's body went rigid, her eyes rolling back as she growled like an animal. Then, suddenly, she collapsed. When she woke up, she had no memory of what had happened. But for the first time in months, she felt a strange relief. The priest continued to cleanse the house, but he warned them. "You must leave this place. The evil here is too strong." Eventually, with the help of government officials, Latoya and her family moved away. The house was abandoned, and its reputation grew. Some locals claimed to see shadows moving inside at night, despite it being empty. In 2014, the house was purchased by paranormal investigator Zach Bagans, who documented the hauntings. After gathering evidence of supernatural activity, he made a shocking decision. The house was torn down. Latoya and her family finally found peace in a new home, far from Gary, Indiana. The bruises and scratches disappeared, and the voices stopped. But even years later, Latoya sometimes wakes up in the middle of the night, feeling as if something unseen is still watching her. Perhaps, once touched by true darkness, one never truly escapes. To this day, the story of the 200 Demons house remains one of the most terrifying documented hauntings in American history. Was it truly a demonic infestation, or was it something even more sinister? Only those who lived through it know the